Hi everyone. Today let's talk about Bill Ackman wanting to take X public. Then of course we'll take a look at the economics, the charts, as well as my results for the day and my thoughts going into tomorrow's session. If you like trading stocks and options and making money, definitely like and subscribe. I make videos like this every single day that the markets are open as well as Sundays, so make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Welcome to the Portfolio Bulletin. Let's get started. So Bill Ackman said he wants to take X public, which they say here is a risky move. Bill Ackman, obviously the hedge fund manager and CEO of Pershing Square, said that they want to take X public via a variant of the SPAC, saying the company could raise at least $1.5 billion, according to a filing, which is a pretty interesting move here. X obviously has some controversy behind it. Elon Musk always draws a lot of attention. They're pretty staunchly free speech, which is interesting in today's big tech world, which seems to be part of why he bought the company. In terms of Ackman, he did something like this here for Universal Music Group, where a SPAC bought 10% of the company here for around $4 billion on a blank check company, and he thinks he can do something very similar for X, previously known as Twitter. They say the path for actually making this happen is unsure, and it did seem like this was more of an offhanded comment, but I would guess if Bill Ackman is willing to say it in public, he does mean it at least a little bit. Moving over to the economic calendar, you can see here, Eurozone unemployment rate came in at expectations, lower than the previous read, which was actually revised up from the same level. Manufacturing PMI, better than expectations. Really, all of these were better than expectations except manufacturing prices. We did have Fed Powell speak today, but that one didn't really affect the markets. It was very similar to his last speech. And then tomorrow we have Fed Bostic speaking. The JOLTS report on Tuesday is going to be the big one at 10 o'clock. That could be interesting. Expected to be up a little bit from the previous read, and that'll definitely be interesting for tomorrow. Moving over to Max Payne, currently sitting at 427. Max Payne came down $1 at 431. Put call ratio still pretty high. Puts, quite a lot of puts here at 420. Total options came down a little bit. 425, also quite a lot of puts. Very few calls in the market here, which does tend to make me lean a little bit more bullish. Definitely interesting as we move towards that Friday close. Moving over to the charts here on the S&Ps, hourly gapped up, hit trend, broke my level at 425.82, ended up spiking above that at the end of day, and finished down just 0.04%. Daily momentum continuing to tick towards bullish. You can see we've continued to hold this level at 425.82. As long as that level continues to hold, even if it's pretty choppy in the same region, that is going to be a little bit bullish. And so far it seems like it's throwing wicks and finding support at that level. Moving over to the NASDAQ, this one quite a bit more bullish. 0.83% on the day. Momentum definitely ticking significantly towards bullish. Similarly, threw a wick to the upside, fell into the mid-session highly traded zone, held that level, rallied up above trend and resistance right at the end of the session, watching those levels right in that 160 to 161 area. As long as that holds, we could look for some chop at that level, and then a potential push up to 364.84. That does look quite bullish. Obviously, we're watching this 200 SMA on the hourly chart sitting at 362.80. But right now, this looks pretty bullish in my opinion. Still looking for a retest of the 21 EMA at 367.35 on the daily chart. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow, Russell had a terrible day, down more than 1%. Did throw a wick to this level at 173.52. Ended up perking up a little bit at the end of day. If that's going to hold, that could be an interesting level. It is very close to my 172.60 level, which is not great. Usually if they're that close, you get an overthrow to horizontal support. We didn't quite get that today, which is interesting. Momentum continues to tick down here on the 4-hour chart. Does not look like a great time to be bullish if that 173.50 level breaks. Moving over to the Dow on the 4-hour chart, similar thesis, continues to trend downwards. Not looking great. In terms of levels for me, my next one is at 329.40, and it continues to move through this area with not a ton of volume. You can see even zooming out, including this chop in this zone, the volume continues to thin out as we go lower. Moving over to Apple and Tesla, Apple finding a lot of strength, finally, off of that 170.90 level. We've been watching this zone for a while, found a lot of strength here today, looks pretty clean. We're at this previous resistance. If that breaks, we could start looking for a push up to 176.15 or even 178.58. That would be a nice move. You have the 144 EMA sitting at 177.92. Overall, this looks pretty nice. We did have a move similar to this here in mid-September, which ended up breaking down, so you do have to be aware of that. This is still a technical downtrend, but we're looking at a cross here on the 9 and 21s. Momentum is bullish, RSI is bullish, and this still could have a little bit of legs in my opinion. Tesla throwing a massive wick to the downside back into this previous chop. Ended up holding at the 200 SMA on the 4-hour chart, basically went sideways on the day, and overall this still looks bullish in my opinion. Moving over to staples and discretionary, staples continuing to look very weak. Big leg down once again here today. Discretionaries, on the other hand, throwing some wicks to the downside just like Tesla. Ended up pretty similar in terms of price action, mostly sideways, but down a little bit from the highs on Friday. If this current level holds at this highly traded zone, basically right where we are, still looking for a push above that 162. If that level holds, then there's a pretty good chance I think we're going to move up to 166.72. Moving over to breadth, 50-day average continuing to break down, not what you would want to see there. 200 on the other hand, throwing a wick to the same low as this previous low. RSI continuing to make higher lows here. So continuing to get divergence on RSI and prices on the market breadth. If this level holds, we could find a nice little rally, just like we did here from May up to the high in July. So critical level here, 50-day average, like I said, making another low, and that does look pretty weak. Zooming out here, if this 1050 level breaks, then we're watching all the way down to 2.75. That would be a pretty big capitulation move in my opinion. And if we do hit that zone, that's going to be a pretty nice opportunity to the bull side in my opinion. Moving over to yields just for a moment. 10-year yield continues to be a rocket ship. Still watching 4 3/4 here as a potential level for resistance, but this is absolutely parabolic and not something you want to get in the way of, and that is spelling some weakness in equities, despite the Nasdaq holding up pretty well today. Moving over to the dollar on the hour and the weekly. What an absolutely massive move. So we had a pretty decent dip on Friday, touched the 200 on the hourly chart, and from there it rallied up pretty aggressively into the close, just slightly here in the early morning hours on Monday, and then rallied super aggressively, taking out my 106.84 level. Next level for me is up at 108, and just look at where we're at in terms of pricing. Really high, starting to get towards that July high from 22. And if we continue to rally like we saw here, we could get all the way up into those September, October highs here for the dollar, which remember was a pretty aggressive down move for equities. Moving over to yields, you got J&K falling off a massive cliff. On Friday, we gapped up and fell, finished basically unchanged, and then here today, massive gap down and continued to fall in the session, massive volume, looking kind of like capitulation here on J&K. That was an absolute dumpster fire. Similarly here on TLT, this continues to waterfall off, making new lows, closing right on the low, momentum bearish, RSI bearish, everything looks weak on bonds, which makes sense with yields going higher. Moving over to the volatility indices, you can see move index breaking out. This is pretty scary now at this point. This has been a massive move, slight pullback, massive move to the upside. Bond volatility going super high. VIX continues to hold in this zone through a wick to the upside. Momentum still fading, which is interesting. Not sure quite what this is going to do yet. It's a little elevated from where we've been, but it's not spiking yet either, so still waiting for some direction there on the VIX, but this move index does look pretty interesting to the upside. If this starts to take out these previous highs here, this could absolutely precursor some lower lows here into equities and bonds. Moving over to my accounts, somehow I made a little bit of money. All of that was on the Nasdaq. I really should have made a little bit more money there. I did continue to hold this position on the IWM. I took it off for a little bit, and then I put it back on for Wednesday at 173. We'll see how that plays out. I'm continuing to keep a pretty tight stop on the IWM. Like I said on the charts, it does not look great, but we are at a fairly interesting level at 173.50. In terms of the Qs, I still have my standard position, which I did roll out once again here to 359 for Thursday for $4.57. So I did actually get a little bit of money back on those 358s. And was able to roll up my strike a little bit into that rally. In terms of puts, I have some 360 puts for tomorrow. We'll see how that plays out. I did trade in and out of this position a little bit. Originally, I rolled it out in time and down, and then on the rally, I made some money on that and then rolled it back in and up, trying to get a little bit more money for tomorrow's session to the bull side. Like I said, I think the NASDAQ does look pretty good, and I might even open a position on the Roth for the Qs for tomorrow. We'll see how that one plays out, but overall, IWM neutral at this level, Qs still looking bullish. Let me know down in the comments section what you think of Bill Ackman and his comments on X. Does it make sense to take X public, once again, previously known as Twitter, or is it all for show and a little bit of political posturing? Definitely like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video, and make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.